The Assembly will come back to order. I will now appoint a committee of two consisting of Assemblymember Watts and Assemblymember Hardy to invite the Senate to meet with the Assembly in a joint session to hear a message from United States Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. The committee will be about its business. The members of the Senate are invited to chairs in the Assembly chamber. The Secretary of the Senate will call the Senate roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Buck. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Cruz Crawford. Senator Daley. Senator Dignate. Senator Dunbar-Loop. Senator Ellison. Senator Flores. Senator Hansen. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Rogish. Senator Scheibel. Senator Steinbeck. Senator Stone. Senator Taylor. Senator Titus.
The Chief Clerk of the Assembly will call the Assembly roll.
Assembly members Anderson, Backus, Brown May, Carter, Cole, Considine, Dahlia, DeLong, Dickman, De Silva, Edgeworth, Flanagan, Gallant, Gonzalez, Goulding, Gray, Gurr, Hafen, Hansen, Hardy, Hibbets, Hunt, Jackson, Howdigi, Karras, Kasama, Koenig, LaRue Hatch, Marzola, Miller, Monroe Moreno, Moore, Mosca, Nadeem, Wynn, O'Neill, Orentlicker, Roth, Torres Fawcett, Watts, Urick, Gallant, Speaker Yeager.
Here. I will now appoint a committee of two consisting of Senator Pizzina and Assemblymember Howdigi to wait upon United States Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and escort her into the Assembly chamber. The committee will be about its business. The appointed committee will escort Senator Cortez Masto to the Chief Clerk's rostrum. Everyone please rise. Cortez Masto, we welcome you and we look forward to your message.
I want to thank our Governor Lombardo, Lieutenant Governor Anthony. I see some of our constitutional officers are here. Thank you for coming, so appreciate it. To Leader Cannizzaro, Speaker Yeager, our distinguished Supreme Court, and then all of the members of the Senate and Assembly. I want to start by thanking you for your work on behalf of Nevadans and your partnership as we collaborate on federal, state, and local level. The most important thing that we can do to support Nevadans is work together to deliver for our families and businesses. whether you're Democrat, Republican, whether you live in an urban or rural area, when we're here, our collective focus is how we can make Nevadans' lives better. It is imperative that as we hear from the people of Nevada, we continue to exchange information and ensure we are meeting their needs. Listen, like you, I love this state. I love our people. And one of my favorite things to do is travel around our state and just talk to Nevadans. And I'll tell you, in my conversations with the people of this state, one of the top concerns I'm hearing about over and over again is the need to lower costs. Groceries, utilities, housing, and healthcare. And you all know this. And you are doing your part to lower those costs. I also know that healthcare is a major priority for the Nevada Legislature. And I know I am not the first to address this before this body. But with all of the uncertainty surrounding costs with this administration, that's what I want to focus on today. Now, before I get there, first, I do want to talk about where we are with the continuing resolution that just passed a few days ago. The reality is that it was an extremely difficult vote between two bad options. However, shutting down the government and forcing tens of thousands of Nevadans to work without pay with no clear end in sight would have been devastating for Nevada. And at the end of the day, my first priority is to Nevadans. And I could not let the people of this state get caught in the middle of the turmoil in Washington. And that is why I chose to keep the government open. And now we can continue the fight for critical federal support for healthcare in Nevada. But here are the facts. Congressional Republicans' #1 goal for the year is to pass a $4.5 trillion bill that would extend tax cuts that mostly benefit billionaires. This would add $2 trillion to our national debt. And they are looking for $2 trillion in pay-fors. A good bulk of it, $880 billion, targets Medicaid funding. Nevadans are being told that these cuts are going to come from cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. And it would be great if that were true. I'm all for getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse within government programs. But the simple truth is this. We're not going to find $880 billion in pay-fors by only cutting waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. To shrink this essential program down by nearly $1 trillion, Medicaid would have to be gutted. There's no other way around it. There's no other way. And that's not just a talking point. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office analysis confirmed that Republicans would have to make the largest cuts in Medicaid history to meet their budget's $880 billion target. We all know federal Medicaid cuts will hit Nevada hard. Medicaid is the largest part of our state budget. You all know that. Federal cuts are going to lead to this body being forced to either increase taxes or cut health care spending to make up for that loss. Now, we know that Governor Lombardo has said in the past that he's not going to raise taxes. So that leaves cuts in health care spending for the legislature. Well, I know you feel this way. That's not going to work for Nevadans. Medicaid supports every facet of our health care system in Nevada. Let's start with mental health care. Our behavioral health infrastructure in Nevada relies on Medicaid payment for care for both children and adults. We need to be investing more in mental health, not less. But Medicaid cuts would decimate our behavioral health services, and it would diminish our state's ability to comply with a recent agreement made with DOJ to improve services for children with behavioral health needs. And we can't talk about the harm of Medicaid cuts without talking about the Affordable Care Act's Medicaid expansion. I want to put that into perspective. Before the ACA, if you were an adult with no dependents, even if you were low income, you had no access to Medicaid. Unless your employer provided health insurance, you had limited access to affordable health care. That changed thanks to the ACA. Since Nevada expanded Medicaid in 2014, the rate of uninsured Nevadans has dropped from 22% in 2012 to under 11% in 2023. Nevadans who had chronic illnesses that kept them out of a stable job are now able to join the workforce and contribute to our economy. If this administration does away with Medicaid expansion, it would devastate our workforce, our small businesses, and yes, our economy. That's just the tip of the iceberg. One of the areas where Medicaid cuts would hit the hardest is in rural Nevada, which, as we all know, is already underserved in terms of health care. I don't have to tell you that quality health care is hard to access in rural Nevada, and what little we have there, we need to keep. Wherever provider is located, whether it's 30 minutes away or 4 hours, that's where you have to go to be seen by a doctor. Some of those providers work at community health centers. These clinics rely on Medicaid to provide affordable, quality health care to underserved communities and vulnerable populations. Without Medicaid dollars, some of these community health centers will be forced to close. And the reality is, we don't have enough providers in our Medicaid program. Now, I know expanding our number of healthcare workers is a big priority for the Nevada Legislature. And it was emphasized in Governor Lombardo's budget proposal for 2025-2027. And it's a priority for me too. I'm leading legislation in the United States Senate to support graduate medical education programs that help more healthcare providers train and stay in Nevada. And I know they want to, and they're Nevadans, and they want to be here. And right now, we're using critical funding from Medicaid to strengthen our state's healthcare infrastructure. If Medicaid is cut, the state of Nevada will have to make some difficult decisions about how we continue to support our providers. One of the proposals we're seeing in Washington for cutting Medicaid includes either lowering the hospital provider tax or eliminating it altogether. Now, I think everyone in this room knows that hospital provider tax revenue is vital to financing our state's share of Medicaid. Lowering funding through hospital provider taxes would jeopardize access to behavioral health services, and it would wreak havoc on our healthcare economy. It really is a zero-sum game. If Medicaid expansion is rolled back or hospital provider taxes are eliminated, Medicaid funds are cut. Then payment rates for healthcare providers are cut, benefits are reduced, and facilities that treat the most vulnerable Nevadans close. Nevadans do not want this. And let me tell you, it wouldn't just affect Nevadans with Medicaid and their families. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to speak with some of our firefighters. And I know our firefighters here in Nevada, they are trained as advanced emergency medical technicians. And here in Northern Nevada, I was talking with them. And aside from being concerned about cuts to their own programs, because Elon Musk and Doge are cutting what we know are essential programs for our firefighters, but these firefighters are also concerned about cuts to Medicaid. Because here's why. If Nevadans on Medicaid can no longer afford to go to the doctor or to the hospital when they get sick, they're going to be more reliant on emergency care. That means more 911 calls, more paramedics and EMTs being spread too thin, and more beds filling up in our emergency rooms. It just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work for our state. Now, everything I've just talked about has only been under the umbrella of Medicaid. But I want to be clear that funding for other healthcare programs is being threatened in DC as well. And I just want to highlight one of these. We have 2 incredible medical schools in Nevada at UNR and UNLV. Both universities, yeah, clap for them because they are incredible. Thank you, Cisco. Both universities are top schools for medical research in the country, and both receive essential funding from the National Institutes of Health to support their research. But now, we're seeing NIH funding being frozen or cut. And UNR and UNLV are at risk of losing millions of dollars that's been going towards innovation in cancer research, cardiovascular science, and more. We have to be paying attention because what happens in Washington is going to have a direct impact on Nevadans here at home and our healthcare system. I will always work with any administration on policy that is good for our families. And I'll work with them to identify real fraud, abuse, wherever it exists. But I'll tell you what, I will not agree to dismantling critical federal programs to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. It is not going to trickle down to hardworking Nevadans, I can promise you. We know it, and Nevadans know it. That's why it is so critical that we keep working together at the local, state, and federal level to ensure we're getting Nevadans the resources that they need. Now is the time. Now is the time for all of us to come together in a bipartisan way and show Nevadans that they can trust their elected leaders to stand up for them. And as we work together, we also have to communicate with our constituents. We have a responsibility to represent Nevadans, and that means keeping them informed about the way their lives are changing under this administration. When I got to Washington, I promised I'd always put Nevada first. And I'd never forget why I was there. To fight for Nevadans. I know so many of you feel the same way. So we have to continue to fulfill our oaths to the state and work together to deliver for the people of Nevada. I have faith in you, and I have faith together we can make that happen. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight, and I thank you every day for what you're doing on behalf of the people of this great state. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Assemblymember Marzola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Senate and Assembly in joint session extend a vote of thanks to Senator Cortez Masto for her timely, able, and constructive message.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. The appointed committee will escort Senator Cortez Masto to the bar of the Assembly. Senator Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this joint session of the Senate and Assembly be dissolved.
Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second the motion.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. I declare the joint session dissolved.
Assembly Committee on Revenue, please head back to 4100.
The Assembly will come back to order. Assemblymember Howdegi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Assembly stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 19th, 2025, at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Now, Assembly members can go back to 4100.